Welcome to episode 26 of the Whatnauts Review Show. Every week, we pick something and we talk about it. It's a story. Stories come in a lot of different forms. Movies, TV shows, anime, manga, comic books, narrative podcasts, all kinds of things. We pick one, we watch it, read it, listen to it. We come here and we have our little book club discussion about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined as always by Kyle Springer.
Hell
Kyle,
yeah.
how are you this morning?
That's me. I'm good. I've had a good weekend. I've been replaying Life is Strange on PlayStation 4. That game is fantastic.
Yes.
And I finished Season 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last night. And that was also really, really good. And then apparently you and I both got blackout curtains. So how did you sleep? Because I slept really well.
I did sleep so much better. Like, it's not 100% black, but I get just a little bit of light coming in from, like, the top of the thing that it makes any time of day look like it's 5 a.m.
There you
which
go.
is perfect.
Yeah, mine are like this. I thought they were supposed to be paper, but they're like this plasticky paper. And it's just like this accordion fold thing that you stick up at the top of the window, and you have to stretch it down. So I'm still stretching it down. They haven't covered the windows entirely yet, but they're getting there. So it's good. It's good. I slept good. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last night, I went to a trivia night. I was telling you about this on the last episode of the Captain's Log we recorded.
Yes, which by the time this goes public, will be public for everyone else as well. So go check out that, whatnauts.com, or look up the Whatnauts on your podcast app and subscribe to the Captain's Log.
It was really fun. I was told that the trivia night would be Star Wars themed. It was not. It was generally... Yes! It was this weird general theme of stars. So there was, like, Hollywood trivia and legit
Hollywood
astronomical questions. Like, what is this constellation? And there's, like, a St. Louis Walk of Fame with little stars set into the pavement.
Yeah.
And they had, like... They copied out, like, the descriptions of people, and they're like, okay, which person is this? And... there were lots of people I forgot were even from St. Louis. Did you know Scott Bakula's from St. Louis?
I don't even know who Scott Bakula is.
He's the guy from Quantum Leap.
I haven't seen that.
Well, he's the man who leaps quantumly.
Well,
that's him.
There you go. Was that the thing? Who is the man that leaps quantumly?
It talked about his mini credits. He's a serious Broadway guy.
Okay.
Lots of things about Scott Bakula. Yeah,
I've
so I was
probably seen him in something, and I just don't know. I just don't know him by his name, because I'm terrible with names.
But I was a little thrown off my game. Like, I came here to say, like, sci-fi things as best as I know how. And that was not really called upon, but our table still won. Second year in a row.
There you go. Good for you. Good for you. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you're back at it again with your Halloween picks.
Yes. Last week's set of pitches was witches. All witch picks. And so you picked out of my 3 options the first volume of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comics from Archie Comics, and these were written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa and illustrated by Robert Hack. This first volume, it's from 2016, and it's 5 issues, which is a little bit shorter than maybe the average volume, the average, like, trade paperback is.
It's about the right size.
I think all the ones you've given me to read have been, like, 6 to 8 issues, but
okay.
Plenty of stuff happens in this book. There's lots to talk about.
There is. Actually, I think this is most of the comics in this series that are out. I think there's only 2 more issues that are out so far after this. Which is unfortunate, because this is a very good series, and a similar thing is kind of happening with its sister series, Afterlife, with Archie, which I have right here with me.
Hello!
So if you guys are looking on the YouTube version or catching this live on Twitch, I'm pulling up my trade paperback of the comics. And here's the artwork inside and stuff like that. Oops, there we go. But yeah, that was unfortunately kind of the downside with these comics, is that Afterlife with Archie came out and everyone loved it. It's fantastic. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, we're expanding the horror universe. We're going to do the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina as well. And we're like, hell yeah, that's sweet. Awesome. And then they just stopped coming out. They're like, okay, next issue is delayed by 6 months. Oh. And then the one after that might come out next year sometime, maybe. Who knows? No. We'll see. So yeah, we don't have too much going on. But they are some fantastic comics. And I know the guy that writes both of these books, it's the same writer, also helped out with the first season of Riverdale, too. So that was partly why he was so busy. Which I love that show. It is hot garbage, but I love it.
Yeah, I've just started. I'm only 4 or 5 episodes in,
so
and
good.
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. It's such a weird thing, but it's so much fun to watch, and I definitely see how there's a stylistic connection between that and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And then we're getting that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Netflix series.
Which I'm super
And the trailer for that looks real spooky.
It looks awesome. So I'm excited for that Netflix show. So I'm glad you picked this. I will give you a sneak peek into what I am pitching at the end of this episode for next week, because I figured it out. If we had planned it right, we should have done what I'm gonna pitch today for this week. We should have been recording it now, so it came out on the same weekend as the movie, because I'm going to be pitching some comics about Venom. For the new pseudo Spider-Man related movie. It's not really in the MCU or connected to the Spider-Man one, so I don't really know what they're up to.
Unfortunately, I keep forgetting that it's happening, but yeah, maybe I'll go check that out.
Yeah, so I'm going to pitch some Venom comics after this, but that episode will then come out the following week after the movie, which I think is then either the week before or something that Sabrina comes out on Netflix. Or no, wait, Sabrina comes out at the end of the month, closer to Halloween, right?
That would make sense. I don't remember the exact release date.
I don't remember, but I used to be good about knowing when all of this stuff was coming out and planning accordingly, but I haven't been doing that, and I've been slacking majorly. So down the road, we'll get all of our dates right, but we will have episodes for them.
Yes, yes. They may be a week or two off, but they will be there.
Yes, they are there. Do you want to start with the synopsis?
Yeah, so this is a period piece comic. It takes place in the mid-1960s, around the time the original Sabrina comics were being published. And Sabrina's father is a warlock who married a mortal woman, which is against normal witch policies. Yes.
No, it is forbidden.
And when she was a year old, he basically had her lobotomized, and he ran off with Sabrina so that his wife couldn't tell anybody.
Lobotomized.
Yeah. I'm from this witch family. I married into a witch family. They've got my daughter. I'd like to have her back, please. So that was long enough ago that Sabrina doesn't remember her mother, and her father's off traveling. He's off getting into warlock business throughout most of her childhood. She hasn't really seen him since she was 6 years old, and she's raised by her aunts, Hilda and Zelda. And they moved to the town of Greendale, Massachusetts, which is evidently Satan's favorite state.
There's a lot of witch history in Massachusetts.
Yep.
which is where I was born, too. I was born in Massachusetts.
Oh, cool. I don't know if Missouri is any witch history.
Maybe
we just have Scott Bakula. Which rhymes with Dracula, and that's a scare. Oh, no. You know who we do have?
Who do you have?
You know who else is a famous Missourian? Vincent Price.
There you go.
Yes.
Perfect.
So he will carry all of us. But anyway, so they all moved to Greendale, Massachusetts, and this comic is about... It's on the verge of Sabrina's 16th birthday, and she's dealing with high school stuff. She's dealing with this cute boy named Harvey, and her witch baptism is coming up when she is able to use her free will and make the choice, yes, I pledge myself into dark services, or I will choose to live as a mortal knowing that my powers will eventually fade.
Yeah. There's a lot happening there, but it is still that, like, high school like, she is just this, like, teenage girl in high school who wants to do the high school things, but at the same time there's, like, this like horror backdrop, a lot more so than what you would get in the original comics, which I haven't really read, but I know the style of Archie and all of that stuff. And it was... This book is a lot more serious than it is campy and just like, well, gee whiz, Archie. Like,
I grew up watching the live action Sabrina show with Melissa Joan Hart, and I was surprised like how much stuff in that was apparently real Sabrina canon, because I kept seeing it show up in here too.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea that first show from the 90s was so sincere about the whole thing, even though that was far more on the campy side. Some of the basic elements are still there.
Yeah. It takes all of those basic ingredients, and this one is definitely much more a horror spin on the book, which is a lot of fun, and I like. And I think if you like this book, you should definitely check out Afterlife with Archie, which is also fantastic. And it's more zombies and stuff like that. So there's volume 1, and again, I think like a couple issues after it, but I don't think they've completed volume 2 yet, which stinks. So
we'll get there. We'll get there
one day.
Yeah. So I think now we are going to dive on into spoilers. So if you are...
Yeah. I was just going to say we should do some housekeeping while we do the spoiler break.
Yeah. I was going to give everybody the kind of update on the live streams and everything. How if you are listening to us live stream now, as we are, you can stop here if you haven't read the books and you want to, because there's a lot of stuff that happens, and you can come back and listen to the uploaded live stream on YouTube or the uploaded live stream as the podcast episode in about a week. Or if you subscribe to us on Patreon, for as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to those things as soon as they go up. And then you'll be able to listen to the entire episode, all the discussion, once you have read the book also.
Yes. Or if you're like me and you've listened to other book club style podcasts without following along at home, that's fine too. But you will get spoiled.
Join on in. We'll do our best to explain.
A couple more things for housekeeping. Follow us on YouTube and Twitch, please. We really need the help. We really want to be pushing that. Even if you do not watch it on YouTube or watch it live on Twitch, your help there would be much appreciated. Go, you can look us up on YouTube just by searching the Whatnauts podcast, and we will pop up. And on Twitch, we are twitch.tv/thewhatnauts. Or you can go to thewhatnauts.com/livestreams. You don't even have to leave our website. So do that stuff. Go send us a nice review on iTunes. If you have some kind things to say, we could absolutely use the help on that as well. The more good reviews we get, the more new people can find the show. We can spread the word. Hopefully we can get more people who want to support us on Patreon that way, and then we can build bigger and better shows. So that would be fantastic. And then we kind of mentioned the Captain's Log earlier. So go check that out as well. And that's housekeeping for today.
Okay, now we can put away our housekeeping broom, and now we can hop on up on our witchcraft broom. They're separate brooms.
Getting hopped up on them. I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea of what to expect from this comic, and I thought I would like it, and I ended up liking it even more. This was a really good read.
So you haven't read either of the Afterlife with Archie, or well, now you've read this, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you expecting? Because I've read Afterlife with Archie, and I've listened to book club podcasts, much like what we do here, cover the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I want to say it was like last year or something. So I've heard them talk about it, but I didn't really know exactly what was happening. But I had an idea of what to expect. But what about you? What were you thinking?
I don't think I knew it was a period piece. Like, I think I'd seen pictures from it, and I thought that was just the aesthetic they were going with. Like, almost how The Incredibles is set in kind of a futuristic time, but everybody just dresses like it's the 60s.
Yeah, or
I
like
thought
the
it was
Batman,
something like that.
Animated series where it doesn't really say what time it is. It looks old, but it's also futuristic, and who knows?
Yeah. So I thought it was just a stylistic choice, but I think that it was interesting that it was set directly in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And also it's a lot deeper and more serious into the witchcraft than I thought it would be. Not that I was expecting this to be some fun romp, but I wasn't expecting, like, lots of talk about literal actual Satan. And yes, the family cannibalizes dead human bodies from the cemetery across the street.
There's that. They actually mix in a lot of, like, real witch history, or I guess, like, American witch history. I'm not up to date on witch history. That is not my cup of tea. But I just kind of, out of curiosity, when they mentioned, what was his name? Was his name Giles something?
Giles Corey.
Yeah, that's a real person. And he actually was killed exactly like that in the Salem witch trials. Which I was just like, I wonder if they're mixing in real history. And so I just looked it up, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy's kind of famous in witch history.
Yeah, he's a character in The Crucible. And yeah, I think I remember that from my high school unit on The Crucible, that a lot of those characters were real people.
Yeah, so that, like, stuff is mixed in there that's like, oh, this stuff actually is kind of creepy and scary.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
But it's not super grim and foreboding. And, I mean, they say chilling legitimately. This is a very chilling book. But it's also sweet. Like, I like how loving the aunts are to Sabrina, and when they tell her, you know, we'll love you anyway, even if you decide to turn your back on witchcraft to become immortal, like, they seem sincere about it. Like, no matter what, you are our niece, we still love you, even if you don't want to be involved in any of this.
Yeah.
Once you have the choice to do that. And there's also, when Sabrina's cousin Ambrose is teaching her about glamours and how she can, like, disguise her appearance, and he's naming all of these, like, famous, beautiful women of the time that she could look like. And he's like, oh, you could do a Marilyn, or if, you know, you're not a Marilyn person, you could do a Jackie. And Sabrina says, oh, no, that seems disrespectful. I still have nightmares about that. And I'm like, oh, I love that
like,
no matter
just happened the year before.
Yeah, and no matter even if they are, like, cannibalizing Satan-worshipping witches, like, the JFK assassination still made them sad. Like, I like that very humanizing touch about the whole thing. Like, these would be the bad people in any other story, but they're not here.
Or stereotypically, yeah. Because, I mean, witchcraft is a real thing. Like, I've met people who identify as that and say they follow it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know much either.
I know in a lot of stories, witches are vilified. And stuff like that. So, you know, it's just that they are doing this stuff. It's like, this is strange stuff to me. But then they're just normal people too, you know?
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of the tropes of the kind of storybook witch, but with enough of the actual real world witches and like the kind of practicality of the things they go through. Like when they have to do mix. Like the spell with Harvey, like it's not like Eye of Newt. It's like, okay, you need some fresh honey and you need these things and you need it in a jar. And like, it's very practical household stuff. And like I said, they're very real people. They're very sweet people, you know, and then they go and do all these spooky rituals in the woods.
What I thought was neat was, we mentioned it's a good mix, but it's a mix where they are taking the more like real world practical stuff, but then all of the like more fanciful like storybook stuff is also real to them.
Yes,
which is neat, and it gives it both this whimsical / like scary vibe too, because they eat people in this thing, which I was like they live in this graveyard so they can eat the dead people, and then the whole like Macbeth stuff is real to them. Like it's so it's like, oh, that's kind of neat, you know. They have the whole like broomstick thing. It's good. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, despite how realistic and scary some of the stuff can be.
Yeah, and this was a very scary book, which I was excited about. Like, I was expecting something like it, but again, not quite as deep as the story actually got into it. Like, you find out, and I don't think it's exactly clear who did this or why this happened, but Sabrina's father kind of disappeared from her life around when she was 6.
Wasn't that him who was turned into the tree?
Yes! Okay. He's been turned into a tree!
Yes.
And he just, like, where you would have just sort of, like, knots and gnarls in a tree, it's, like, his face, like, screaming in agony, which is, that's so like visceral and so affecting.
Dante's Inferno, which they also do make reference to in this book. So he kind of gets turned into the tree. I got the impression that it was the aunts, though, that turned him into that.
That's my best guess too, but we don't really know for sure. We don't get a lot about Hilda and Zelda's feelings towards their brother. They have very sincere love for Sabrina, but it is kind of implied, but also very gray, that they were using Edward Spellman and his relationship with this mortal woman to generate maybe some sort of very special child that then they were going to take and raise. And again, it seemed very sincere. Give her the option of free will, because free will like really means something to them. She has the right to not go into witchcraft.
Yeah.
But also, if she does go into witchcraft, she's going to be something very special. And it seems like maybe they didn't trust him to raise Sabrina, or there was some reason they wanted him out of the picture. But again,
maybe there's
we don't
something
really
about
know.
Edward that we don't know yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But yeah, that image of him transformed into a tree is like so horrifying, but in like exactly what I was looking for. Like, yes, good scares.
So I have a question, and this stems kind of from basically what happens at the end of the book, that Sabrina is having her baptism and about to pledge herself to Satan, and that's when Harvey finds her. And like, and she's like, "What in the world is going on? This dang witchcraft thing? What the hell?" And he's like, "Oh shit, I stumbled onto something I shouldn't have." And she tells him to run, so he does. He runs away. He gets caught, and he gets killed. So then there's this whole thing of like, we have to like deny that we know what happened and stuff like that. But then Sabrina is put on trial to kind of figure out what happened with the like witch council, not unlike actual like Law and Order WVU, Witch Victims Unit, or Witchcraft Victims. That would be an amazing show, by the way. That would be fantastic.
Hello, TNT?
Yes, hire us.
Got your next big hit.
We have an idea. We can keep Law and Order going. We know how. We have a new show. But so she's on trial with the Witch Council, and they're trying to determine if she planned this whole thing, which to me seemed kind of ridiculous. But she strikes up this deal with Madam Satan, who is like, hey, I can help you bring back Harvey, but you know we need to do some stuff there, and that's when we see Betty and Veronica, because they're gullible young witches and they don't know what they're doing from another town, so they don't really know what's happening, you know. But I got confused because, yes, she did not know that Harvey was going to be there. But when they asked her if she knew that this was going to happen, she had her fingers crossed behind her back. But again, she didn't know. So it was just like, why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense. And then there was it's fine, I can put my hands in the hot holes and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, she's doing something for Madam Satan, but why would she need to lie about? I mean, she's not lying, but why would she why are we given these visual clues that maybe she is lying and she did know?
I think she definitely had no idea that was happening. Like, when Harvey shows up, it is a shock to her. How could she have known? But I think I might have to go back and, like, read the language again, and maybe the judge is saying something like, you know, do you accept that the consequences of Harvey's death? He maybe said something like that, and Sabrina, of course, doesn't. She's like, nope, I'm bringing him back to life. So she's like, oh, yes, I accept that boy is dead. Maybe
it was something... like that.
Yeah, like courtroom scenes are all about like very specific language. I imagine even more so when you were dealing with magic courtrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was like a tiny connective piece that I missed too. But I did think it was...
didn't make sense to me. I was like, why can't she just get the trial done with and then go hang out with Madam Satan and do the spell and bring him like that? I don't get what was happening here. So maybe I did miss something. But I don't know.
I did think it was cool, that sort of proxying that Madam Satan rigged up, where like,
sorry for all the dog barks in the background.
Where Sabrina's hand is getting pricked by a needle, but Sabrina's like, it's almost like her hand disappears and is replaced by Betty's hand, and then Betty's hand is really the one getting
all the
stabbed with a needle.
consequences are happening to Betty and Veronica instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought that was neat magic.
It's good, yeah. Cool stuff. That is one thing I kind of hope for down the road if this series continues, is to see them explore magic a lot more. And I obviously, god damn it, these stupid dogs are all barking in the background. I want them to explore magic and kind of how it's done and what type of magic it is. I don't want to know how it works per se, because that's always stupid, I think, when they explain this is how magic works, and it's like, well, then it's not magic. It's known, it's quantifiable, you know. The whole thing about magic is you don't know exactly. You know, you can do something to channel it, or do something to summon it, or do something to kind of improve your outcome. But other than that, you know, you don't really know. And so I I just want a little bit more rhetoric down the road of like, okay, this is the type of magic we're using here, and this is how magic works. Again, not how it works, but like this is magic in this world here.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite uses of magic in the book is when they make that kind of, not exactly a love potion for Harvey, where it will just sort of...
He's more inclined to like her.
Yes, and it's not mind control or anything like that. It's like, it's sort of mentally suggesting to Harvey...
Changing the odds.
If you would ever have an interest in this girl, go talk to her. Like, it sort of, like, gives him... It sort of lays this clear path for him out in his head, the way I was able to figure it out, at least. Mm-hmm. And, like, he's not... Again, it's free will. He's not ordered to take it. This spell just sort of makes that path clearer to him in his mind as an option.
Yeah.
And he goes and takes it because he does really love Sabrina. And I loved all the stuff that have to go into that spell. Like, you have to take a clear mason jar, and you have to, like, sanitize it and make it very clean. And you have to get, like, fresh honey, and you have to, like, put, like, cinnamon and sugar or something in it. And you have to take a picture of Harvey and write his name in, like, a counterclockwise circle on the back of the picture and roll it up and put it in the jar. And you have to, like, bury the jar under a full moon. Like, all the uses of real-world substances and how if you use them in just the right way, it makes magic. I love stuff like that. Like, I've been reading the Dresden Files urban fantasy series, and I love whenever they get into the physical components of magic. Like, I use this amulet made out of silver because silver has this property to it.
Yeah.
My, magic staff is made out of this kind of tree because this kind of tree is this property to it. I just love that stuff. I like how there's... Awesome. Like, those are everyday objects I would use.
Yeah.
But they have this knowledge... And they have this kind of spiritual connection to see another layer to it and, like, unlock it. Like, oh, yeah, if you take those 6 things out of your kitchen and you combine them in just the right way at the right time. Yeah, you can make this magic thing happen.
Which is kind of how that works anyways. That's science, too. Just mix a bunch of chemicals together. You'll make something happen. But yeah, magic is neat. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of hoping they explore that a little more. Did you have a favorite character? Did you have? Because there were, the cast was fairly small. But I feel like it's a book that as we go on, we're gonna get introduced to more and more characters.
Like, I loved Sabrina's household. I was familiar with the 2 aunts in Salem from, like, the old 90s show. And I like that they were still more or less those same character archetypes. Like, you've got the stern aunt, and you've got the little bit more whimsical aunt.
Yeah.
And then Salem's still wisecracking. I also like the addition of that cousin, who he might have been, like, an episodic character on that show.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I only watched the live action show just from time to time when I was, like, homesick, I
think my favorite character was...
Interesting. Go ahead, you were about to say.
No, I was going to say, I think my favorite character was Harvey. I have a lot of things to say about Harvey.
Talk to me then.
Because he could have been... just sort of this cookie cutter, cool, popular jock.
He's the, like, stand-in for Archie in her school.
Yeah, but he's got a lot to him, and I like how the story really makes it a real love where you can see why Sabrina loves this boy and why he loves her back. And at the end, close to the end, when you find out he was, like, planning to propose to her, like, it makes sense. Like, oh yeah, he does really love her that much.
You proposed to 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
Straight out of high school.
Yeah, you have that kind of culture of the time thing going for it too. But it doesn't.
That's the thing. 16-year-old means they still have 2 more years in high school, or maybe 1 more year, depending. Because I know some people who were super young when they graduated high school and they were still 17. But it was like, my 18th birthday is going to be like my first day in college. I was like, yikes, dude.
I liked that. Well, first of all, I think it was very progressive that Harvey is both like a star football player and he gets to be the lead in the High School Musical. Like, the movie High School Musical is all about how Zac Efron is like, I don't know if I can do both things. Will people accept me? And Harvey Keitel just does it like it's nothing. Yeah. So I liked that first
What a trendsetter. Without Harvey, there wouldn't be High School Musical. Confirmed. Here. You heard it here first.
And that scene in the car where Harvey is asking Sabrina, like, hey, it's your 16th birthday tomorrow. Yeah. He's like, how about we have a really special night?
Wink, wink, like, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and she's like, well, I don't know, Harvey. And he's like, before you say anything else, let me remind you, I completely respect you, and I care about you a lot. And he kind of jumps in and, like, makes that statement. So he's all like, hey, I've got things to say to you before you say anything else. But
yeah,
the important thing is, what I really liked is that he's communicating. Like, he's never playing games with her. He's never being vague. He very clearly states things, and they are caring, positive things. Like, I'm going to stop you right there and very clearly state, I respect you and care about you very much. And I liked that. I like that he's just very open and he's very sincere about his feelings. Mm-hmm. And I also like that. I like that he's a horn dog. He's an appropriate horn dog. He's exactly the level of horn dog he's supposed to be. And Sabrina's kind of at that level. Like, she's not trepidatious, like, I don't know how I feel about having sex. She's like, how do I tell Harvey I'm a witch? Like, it's that part of it. They are on the same page in terms of the physical escalation of things. She just has other concerns that's kind of buried in.
Yeah.
And I liked that he got to be horny and that wasn't like a flaw in his character.
Yeah.
And I liked the backstory of how one time he's running in the woods. He's running away from the witch coven after they catch him. And he remembers this story when he was like 11 years old. One of his friends was like, I saw these porno mags out in the woods. And Harvey's like, that's not real. I'm gonna go see if that's real. Yeah. So he goes out there and he finds them, and like the school, the older teen bullies like surprise him, and he runs away from them. And it's not until he runs away successfully, and he's like panting back in his bedroom, and it's not until then that he realizes he's still holding like the nudie mag in his hands, and he like kind of hides it away in his room. And when it's like one of the other witches in the glamour of Sabrina talking to Harvey, like, Harvey, you ran just like I asked you to. It's going to be okay. Kiss me, Harvey. And Harvey's concerned, like, he can tell there's kind of something going on. He's very cautious. He's like, Sabrina, what was that? Sabrina, I don't know what's going on. And there's one panel that's just a flash of the cover of that nudie magazine. And he goes ahead and kisses her anyway. And so his horniness is kind of his downfall, but that's not his fault. There are people preying on the fact that he is a horny teenage boy. So it is part of his downfall, but it is not his ultimate flaw. Like, it's not his fault he's a horny teenage boy.
It's like the thing, like, you're running for your life, your adrenaline is up, your hormones are up. It's just like, why wouldn't you kiss the girl right then, right there?
Yeah.
And it turns out it wasn't the girl. And then he dies.
I think I'm always fascinated by just like the Prince Charming, by just the boy in like a female oriented romance story, because there are plenty of times where he's just kind of a cookie cutter, like, what are the main qualities of Cinderella's prince? He has nice hair. He knows how to throw a ball. I don't know.
He's a prince. That's it.
Yeah.
What else do you know?
So I've always been like, who is that guy? Why do you like him so much besides the fact that he is handsome and a prince? And Harvey is very likable. And I like like I said, I think he's horny in an appropriate, respectful way to Sabrina. He's a clear communicator. He cares about her very much. And I think he's just an excellent example of a boyfriend that really lives up to, I see why he's the boyfriend. I see why you are risking everything for this guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He's good. I did not connect with him as much. He did.
I'm a real romantic, so.
I mean, you're 100% right though. Like that is what he is. For me, it was like. He's kind of the impetus for the story to take place further. Like from now on, there's a term often used in comics, but you can use it for whatever else, called fridging. And if a character is fridged, it's because they are killed off to then be used as motivation for another character. Usually it happens to women characters.
But like...
The women dies to be the emotional, like, now I must avenge her,
But would, like, Uncle Ben Parker be kind of considered within that realm? Like, he's just there to die so he can inspire you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The term comes from Green Lantern comics, in which Kyle Rayner's girlfriend is literally killed and then stuffed into a refrigerator for him to find when he gets home.
Bad news.
Yeah. So, and then Eric Mannix used to be on a podcast called Out of the Fridge, which is where they got their name from. But yeah, so like I saw him just more as that. It's like, oh, he's supposed to be this kind of cookie cutter jock boyfriend character, super likable. But then he dies, and that's kind of the motivation for Sabrina to make the decision she makes down the road.
I like that we have this different perspective on it. I like that you're just like, he's some guy. Let's get on to more magic. And I'm like, Harvey's a good boyfriend.
we should learn more about him. It's just like, oh, yeah, he's there. Right, move on. No, I mean, because yeah, like I'm wondering how his death will then play into, okay, does she actually pledge herself? When will she get back to this baptism thing? What will bringing him back do to that whole thing? How does that factor in? How does all of this factor in with her father? What's up with that? Like, is that gonna mess things up for the aunts or for the father or for Madam Satan? There's a whole bunch of different parties that are all kind of vying for Sabrina's attention and loyalty and safety, and we don't necessarily know all the motivations of them all yet. And so it's just like, how is this kind of factor in? And that's what was interesting to me with his character. It was just like, okay, how is what happened to him going to change her? So I don't know. I kind of oddly gravitated towards Madam Satan.
She's fascinating, yeah.
She was really interesting. I don't think she's necessarily my favorite character. I think I would have to go with Sabrina for that, but that's also just because like she's center of the story, and so I feel like that's kind of a cop-out answer. But I laughed and I rolled my eyes extremely hard, and I found it amazing that when Madam Satan kills or puts into a coma the drama teacher and then shows up the next day as the substitute teacher, her outfit,
yes.
Madam Satan's outfit, just the it was a mixture of just like a big eye roll. I laughed out loud and I was like, yes, I love this. It's fantastic because it makes no sense and it is amazing.
Yeah, it's like the least appropriate teacher wear. Like, it's such... What it reminded me of is when like Animaniacs would make jokes about like
nurse.
Old yes, or like they'd make jokes about like old Hollywood starlets or something. Like, Animaniacs was steeped in that like kind of old Hollywood culture.
I mean,
she looked like some cartoon
made by Steven Spielberg, so
yeah, she looked like some caricature of some old starlet I'd never seen before. But like they'd show the caricature and it'd be like, okay, I get what you're talking about, like some sex pod of the past.
Yeah, some like jazz singer, movie actress,
some Mae West or somebody
brunette,
like that. Yeah,
but she has this like pencil skirt in the ones where you have to have your legs like one behind the other for it
pretty
to
much
fit,
yes.
which is all sexed up because then it accentuates the hips. And then she's in this, I guess it's like a work jacket, but it's super low cut. And she has nothing on underneath except for this like lacy frilly bra, which you can see. And she's in a high school, and it's like, what? Like this, she looks like a pinup model. Like cleavage is all the way out, and it's just like, what in the world? This is terrible. But I love it because it makes no sense. It's so funny.
She's so over the top.
I mean, that is supposed to be her character, kind of, though, because at the end of I think we both read this on Comixology Unlimited. But in the back of that digital version, I'm not sure if it's also in the trades, they included like a short comic that was about Madam Satan when she kind of first appeared, or when she was like first starting to appear. And she's the same type of character, right? She's the seductress. She is supposed to kind of be preying on these men and their horniness, which is what she does to Harvey, and what she kind of does to Betty and Veronica.
Yeah, because when they summon her, I think they are trying to summon like some sort of a succubus, like somebody that will...
They're just like, let's just do some spells.
Maybe I read this wrong, but I thought they were trying to like summon a succubus that would give them tips on how to be hotter and attract Archie to one of them.
I'm sure it's something like how do we get Archie to like us?
And I like when they joke like, oh, we should just cut him in half.
Yeah. We should just cut him in half. Because that's what witches would do.
Yeah, and to talk about Riverdale for a moment, I'm just a couple episodes into Riverdale, and hasn't been pretty much any like Betty versus Veronica. Like you can tell like Betty likes Archie and Archie kind of likes Betty, but one time Archie and Veronica were like thrown into the 7 Minutes in Heaven closet at a party, and there's some tension there. There's that whole thing going on, but for the most part, Betty and Veronica are good, sincere friends to each other. But I also know, like, just from the general reputation of the Archie comics, it is this sort of rival. I know there's more going on. Like I said, I'm 4 episodes in. I know it might eventually. It'll get there. It'll get there. It's not where I am yet. But I also know from the reputation of the Archie comics, that's most of what it is. This sort of, like, frenemies bickering, like, they're both grabbing on one of his arms sort of thing.
They're friends, but they're also competing against one another, and there's times they hate each other. There's times they're, best gal pals, and it's like, who will Archie pick?
Yeah, and I like that the writer kind of took a step back from that in the TV show, but then he's doing this other comic, and he's like, This is kind of a weird offshoot that plays more into the classic old comics. Here I'm going to play it up a little bit. And I just like that we get to see both versions in this two stories that were told at relatively the same time as each other by the same person. Like, they both get to show different sides of that
definitely in
story.
there in the TV show. And yeah, it is a lot of high school teen drama that you would expect from some kind of like CW teen show. But yeah, then they mix in the like something darker is happening here in Riverdale, which is not in the old comics, and not. I mean, it's kind of happening in this Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic where it's like you see everything from that darker side, right? Where it's like, hey, the dark thing that you think is hanging over in Riverdale, this is kind of the comic equivalent of like, what's that perspective from the dark thing, right? If that makes sense. This and the show are not related. I'm sure I just confused a bunch of people, but it's like classic like high school teen drama meets Twin Peaks. If you've seen that show.
Yes.
So yeah, it's good. I like it.
Yeah. And I feel like I've said the word sincere like 20 times on this episode, but I think that is one of the strengths of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Like, it's not there just for like the shock value of, what if we took this playful witch character and made her like a real Satan-worshipping cannibal? And it really escalates like that darkness factor, but it still has a heart and a charm to it. And the characters all still care about each other legitimately. Yeah. And I like that, at least in these 5 issues, like that center has held. Like, love is real in this world, just as real as horror is.
So I have a question, another one, I guess. This book had a lot of narration in it, right?
Yes.
What did you think of that narration?
I was also, like, just wanting to talk about that. I like that it starts off as just basic, simple, like, the year is this, the place is this character is doing this. And I think it's, like, on Sabrina's birthday where it gets more detailed, like, Sabrina waits for the baptism tonight. She's undergoing these rituals. The ants are doing this in preparation. You know, the forest has been prepared this way. Like, the narration gets more poetic, and it gets more into the interior lives of the characters, and it gets a wider and wider lens. It's able to show you, like, tell you about the full background of everything, not just like that little chyron at the bottom of a TV screen that's like, dun dun, it's 10:45 here at the precinct. Like, it gets a bigger scope to it, and it takes on...
Law and Order, WVU, Witchcraft Victims Unit.
Hire us, Dick Wolf.
Yes.
It takes on, the narration has almost a personality, but not quite. It's almost like one step less personality than the narrator. I kind of imagine
Vincent Price narrating it.
See, I was trying to think. I did spend time... Or like
Rod Serling.
Yeah, like, oh. But for a comic like this, it would have to be a woman narrator, and I'm like...
That's true.
What woman is like the female Vincent Price? Short of picking an actual voice actress, like Grey Griffin could absolutely do this. So it was kind of...
A more modern one, I would say Gillian Anderson.
I was also thinking of her if we wanted, like, the more cold... Not cold, but just like...
Yeah,
like the distant overseeing, like, this is the way things are. I'm a godly voice.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to talk to you about this because on one hand, I liked it. I thought the narration was fantastic. It's written incredibly well. I don't think it's overstepping its bounds.
No.
However, I do think it reads like a book. Like, if this was a short story, I feel like I kind of would have enjoyed it just the same. like without the artwork, and so I kind of don't like that then, because it's like, well, this is a comic book, like there's supposed to be artwork. I want the artwork, and the artwork in this is fantastic.
Yes.
And the again, on one hand, both the artwork and the writing style having this much narration is kind of a callback to these old 60s 70s horror comics.
Like narration heavy is a very pulp thing to do,
very much so. And so I liked it because of that. It's like, okay, this is a callback, this is a reference to that. It makes sense, I understand it, I love it. At the same time, I think it moved the story along also very fast, which I didn't like. I wanted to spend more time in the world with the characters. Like, I don't really know who the cousin is, right?
Yeah.
You also wanted to know more about Harvey. Like, I feel like everything that happened within Volume 1 was a good amount of things that happened, right? But I think the narration, for as much as there is and as dense as it makes the comic, I feel like if you take it out and it's more of the show me, don't tell me stuff, then I feel like we would have gotten a little bit more time with other characters. And I think there's only 2 or 3 other issues past this book, which I think are also all on Comixology Unlimited. So, I mean, the story hasn't progressed much farther, but I'm kind of like, if I, in my mind, if I wanted to see the story go on, I want to see it at this slower, kind of creeping pace, where it is this, there is this kind of psychological aspect to it. Like, oh, we know something bad is happening. We can see all of these pieces kind of coming together slowly. It's kind of what Game of Thrones does, right? Which you have all of these different, it's called Game of Thrones because they're all vying for the throne, but they're all like slowly spiraling in, getting closer to that one final confrontation, that one final battle, and whoever wins that will claim the throne. And I want that with this book, but like its own version. Like, I still don't know the end game. Is this just this is the life and times of Sabrina and it's just the adventures? I mean, I guess it is called the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. But I don't, I kind of want to know if there is some end goal.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I guess not all stories have to have that, but that's what I want from this story. Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Yeah.
But does that make sense? Like, do you see my discrepancy with the narration there?
Like, would you have wished it had done more of like we'll call it the Law and Order thing, where it's just like the very basic time, date, this is the bare description of this is where these people are, this is what they are doing, but it showed you more places, more people, instead of showing you a handful of things very detailed?
I don't necessarily know if I want less narration so that I get more people or more places, but just more time with the existing characters, right? I want to know a little bit, like the whole thing about her having to lie to Harvey's family. Just like, I don't know where he is. I don't know what happened to him. Like, it's a very tense, emotional moment because she fucking hates it, and it's driving her crazy that she can't say anything. And I kind of want to know what's going on inside her head instead of the narration just explaining she's having a tough time. She has to lie. So you would have
preferred more like...
Yeah, I like, you don't need to tell me that for me to know that. I can see that in the artwork,
You would have preferred more first-person narration instead of just the narrator saying,
not even
again,
narration,
Sabrina does not sleep
just
this night.
More dialogue, more of her talking to Salem, more of her, more interaction between her and Harvey. You know, has she? I mean, I don't think there's been very much interaction between her and Madam Satan or the red-headed best friend. She kind of disappeared there the last.
Oh yeah, like that was
episodes.
The one thing that I did feel was kind of dropped. Like, this girl kind of, to some degree with friendliness, talks to Sabrina on her first day of high school. Like, we don't really know what to think about this girl yet. She's just like, oh, hey, I really like your hair. And it's like, oh, is this a real compliment or is this some sort of, like, Mean Girls trap and you're going to turn this against me? Who knows?
Yeah.
But then Harvey walks past and he's like, oh, hey, ladies. And he says to Sabrina, cool hair.
Yeah.
And then Sabrina's like, oh. And Rosalind is the other girl's name. She's like,
mine.
That's Harvey Kinkle. He's mine. And then Sabrina does that spell and Harvey takes the path towards her.
Yeah.
Then we don't really see Rosalind again.
Evaporates.
Like, until it's mentioned, like, Rosalind also wants to try out for the part in the school play that will be Harvey's love interest. And then we see her, like, when there's the big search party in the woods for Harvey, like, yeah, I heard he wasn't satisfied by Sabrina physically. And then Ambrose is like, I just gave her a wicked case of poison ivy for saying that about you.
Yeah. Even the whole thing about Madam Satan kind of scheming her way into becoming the substitute. Like, I kind of would have liked that to be a full issue.
Yeah.
Of just like, okay, here's an issue from her perspective. Or mostly her perspective of, like, how can I scheme my way into this school and get closer to Sabrina? I think taking that time to really flesh that out just makes it that much more like, oh my god, she's actually doing it, not just like, okay, she thought of it, she executed her plan, and that was it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I think the use of narration could have been honed a little bit more finely, but I think when it is describing all the stuff in the woods, it really shines. Like, I like the dialogue in general in the story. There weren't a lot of, like, very specific lines I wrote down, but I think one of my favorite moments in the entire book was when Harvey is running through the woods. The narration says, tonight, if you are the sort of person who prays, pray for Harvey Kinkle.
This is good.
And then which is so, like, real powerful. And then as the situation worsens, there's this little box in, like, little parentheses at the bottom, like, corner of the page that says, "Are you praying yet?"
Yeah. It's good. It's not bad narration, like, at all. It's just, I don't know. Like, I think I like the world that they set up. So I'm very much I like world building. I like lore. I like spending time with these characters to really figure out what's going on. So when I get narration in lieu of that, it's just like, oh, I want more of this other thing, even though this is still really good and I like it. But, you know.
Yeah, like, I'd like to have a character tell me this and not some omniscient narrator. I'd like to see a character tell another character this and not, like, a narrator I don't know tell it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, good stuff.
Yeah.
Any
talk about the
other thought? Yeah, you go ahead.
Let's talk about the art of the thing a little bit, because this is a beautifully drawn book.
Yes, very much so.
And I don't know a lot of things from this time period or from this kind of genre it's playing with. I don't know 1960s horror, really. But so I can't tell why it feels so right to me, but it does. Like, I'm starting to read it and I'm like, this looks like exactly what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And I did figure out eventually that what it feels like is a combination of the illustrations on the covers of old Nancy Drew books, and this old, like, 60s or 70s collection of Edgar Allan Poe poems that I had when I was a little girl. 8 years old, me and my collected illustrated Edgar Allan Poe. It's those two illustration styles put together.
Yeah, it's very classic comic book style in the sense that it is more of a pulp magazine. Yes. It is more of a I mean, the art we have today in comic books are often super duper styled, but when you go back and look at comics from the 60s, everyone draws the same, not because it like that's how those people actually drew. It's just like that was what was considered the most professional, the most it is a classical Greek style. Almost. I guess I say Greek in the characters are statuesque, right? The men have these square jaws. The women have these like small waists, very perky chests and stuff like that. And it's it's this kind of idealized style that also played into the pulp magazines, to advertising in the 50s and 60s, to pinup styles, like all of that stuff. And it plays on that. And then, the like Nancy Drew almost painting of that style without the line work, it kind of has that mixed in. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. Was it watercolor or paint? It was some kind of paint thing. It looked like it didn't look like it was like digital inks. I mean, maybe it did, but
it did have a look of having been physically painted, and I liked there's a texture that some panels had that was used frequently, but not 100% of the time, where it's these like, well, there's the actual coloring of the thing, and then there's this texture over it of like this big brown, like soft brown brushstroke. Do you kind of know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And that thing also reminded me of something very specific, which I don't know if it was meant to sort of evoke this thing, but this is what I got from it. When I was a little kid, my parents had these old photo albums from like the 70s or early 80s. So like not this exact time period of these books, but close enough. And the way these photo albums were made was that it was a sheet of like glossy cardboard that had an adhesive painted on it. And then you would stick the photo onto that adhesive, and then you'd lay down the sheet of clear cellophane on top of the photos, like sort of creating a barrier over them and over that sticky adhesive. And as these books like aged, that adhesive that had been like painted onto the pages kind of browned, got that little sepia tone a little bit, and it looked like the texture on some of the panels looked just like those old sticky photo albums.
Because the same thing kind of happens to old newsprint in old comic books. They yellow or they turn slightly brown as they age, which is what it looked like to me. It looked like these old horror comics from the 60s where maybe your dad had one or your grandfather had one, and they're just like the thing is falling apart, man. But it's this old like musty brown yellowish color. But it like they did it in a stylized way. I don't think I have any of his. Actually, I do. I don't have it with me. Ed Piskor makes comic books. He has one called Hip Hop Family Tree, which is like a comic book history of hip hop. And it's super duper detailed and well researched and stuff like that. He's also currently working on a similar kind of retelling of X-Men history called X-Men Grand Design. But all of that is made, like, all of the pages in those books is made to look like all the art is done on these old newsprint pages. And it's fantastic. It's not, but it's fantastic. Like, the entire page is meant to look like that. Whereas this, it's kind of painted on, and you can see the brush strokes, and like some of the edges of the page will be white or black, and it's just like, it was a stylistic thing to not make the entire page look like this, but the artwork is. which kind of has like a dreamier effect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It feels like an old thing you would find like in a musty corner of your parents' basement. And you're like, oh, this is kind of chilling. I don't know what this is. I don't know where this came from.
Yeah.
Like, it does look like, I think my older brother, who's much older than I am, did have a collection of some old pulpy 70s horror comics, because he's a horror buff. And this did remind me of just a modern version of one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, so good stuff. I really like the artwork. And the covers too. There's a lot of good covers as well. Was there anything else about the artwork that stood out, or something else you wanted to talk about, or should we wrap it up there?
I had another thing I kind of wanted to talk about.
Let's go for it.
This is another rabbit hole. This is another thing like me spending like 10 minutes talking about Harvey and you're just like, yes, he was the boyfriend.
That's A-okay. Take me in all sorts of directions, because your experience is different from mine. So I'll sit here and ask, like, what do you think about the narration?
This is something where our experiences will be very different.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting the way different breasts were drawn in this comic.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Because
let's talk about boobs.
Yes, let's talk about boobs. Because they're not really anything. Like, this isn't like some sexy pinup drawing of Psylocke. Like, there's no crazy boobs in this thing. Like, they didn't register as anything to me.
Anime titties.
No. Like, they didn't register to me as anything except for, like, oh, Zelda is taller and thinner, and Helda's a little bit shorter and rounder than just, like, general body type differences. I did think for, like, a half a second of, I think bra designs in the 1960s would have given you a pointier boob than what this comic is illustrating, but it's your world. If you want to invent an alternate 1966 where there were rounder bras, go for it.
Yeah.
Looks nice. But then the first time you see Madam Satan, she's the first, like, remotely slightly unclothed figure you have seen. Mm-hmm. And she is at once, and she's very voluptuous.
Yes.
And she is at once very titillating and very spooky.
No pun intended.
Yes, yeah. Like, she is not cartoonish, but she is hot on a supernatural level.
She's thick.
Yes. Like, and she is continually wearing lower cut dresses and things like that. And in fact, like, she uses that to just purposefully to distract Harvey during like a football game. She's just sort of sitting there in the stands, and then she just like stands up, and he's like,
she's leaning over the edge where her arms are pushing her boobs together.
Yeah, it's like a real bend and snap procedure, like deliberately designed to like kind of turn his head real quick and stop him from making this great play. But she's continually like displaying herself so much that it is like beyond I'm an attractive woman showing myself off to a supernatural thing is going on here. That's a supernatural chest right there. And then okay, so when all the witches,
that is certainly one way to describe it.
The witch coven is in the woods, and they've thrown away their human forms. Whether it is because they are so ancient that their human forms have to some degree really physically withered, and the way you normally see them is kind of a glamour they are putting up, or if this is like, we are making ourselves purposely look scary to freak you out, Harvey Kinkle, or like it's something in between, like they've put themselves into some sort of a almost literal beast mode to go chase down this boy in the woods. But they look like these decrepit old ladies, but it goes beyond the natural progression of the body as it ages. Oh, especially when you see, there's a shot of like, there's one panel where Hilda and Zelda are explaining to Sabrina, somebody had to die that night. We would rather it be Harvey than you.
Yeah.
And Sabrina sort of has this realization of, oh, my aunts, as much as I love them and as much as they love me, they are old, powerful witches. Yeah. And there's a shot of whether it is metaphorical, whether it's just from the book to us, or whether this is something Sabrina is really seeing, it's them as these decrepit old ladies, and they've got their boobs are beyond just normal old lady sagginess. Again, they are supernaturally decrepit, saggy, veiny boobs. I liked that this book was so just natural and everyday and just ordinary about the way everybody is shaped. Like, nobody's like crazy tall or crazy skinny or crazy fat. Like, the body types everybody has, there's a variety of them, and they're all pretty naturalistic. And then Madam Satan shows up with this, again, not cartoony, but this slight escalation of getting into supernatural attractiveness. And then when the witches are in their, like, you know, their most magical, we've thrown away every shred of humanity. What they really are,
you know.
Yeah, quote unquote. Then they are, like, supernaturally withered.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just an old lady. I don't know. I thought that use of displaying the body was well done, and that it is so just normal the entire time, but when it wants to show you chilling beauty and chilling horror, it amps it up just enough.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is a great point. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that I think comic books can do really, really well.
Yes.
Because it does have the written word, and it does have that visual aspect too. It does have the artwork, and it can play on both of those things. And yeah, I mean, in a visual medium, sometimes to get a point across, you do need to turn something up to 11 or turn something down to 0, you know, to make that distinction, or to make you just understand it that much more. And it might not even be like, it's not something I think most people would read into like down the road, but it is this subconscious thing, because I mean, you said this is going to be something we see vastly different on. It's like, well, no, now that you mention it, yes, I did notice that. That makes a lot of sense, but it's not.
Kyle, I don't want it to be like, if you said, yes, I noticed Madam Satan's boobs too, then I'm going to be like, Kyle, like, there's no right or wrong answer here.
I mean, we did get to see some of her ass, so.
Yes, it's pretty good.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's something that I think is more subconscious than like, hey, look at her boobs. Aren't they pretty? Yes, you think she's pretty. Okay, now that you get that she's pretty and she has nice boobs, we can make this point. It's like, no, she's just slight, like, she just slightly. And
exactly.
You'll notice it, but you won't really, like, it's not something that you'll really speak about.
Like you said, they're turned up to 11, and that's it. Like, it's just above this normal human experience that you take notice of it, and you're like, oh, that's unusual, but it's not turned up to, like, 20. Yeah. And there's nothing in this book that's, like, eye candy. The only time it comes close is when, okay, so the High School Musical is Bye Bye Birdie, and Sabrina is auditioning to play the role played by Anne Margaret in the movie, and for her audition piece is a song that is not in the stage musical. It was written specifically for Anne Margaret for the movie. It's not in the stage version.
I forgot about that scene where there's then a side scene of them talking, and it's like, oh yeah, you can totally use that song.
Yeah, like, she just knows Anne Margaret. And there's a shot, like, across Anne Margaret's chest to Sabrina, and I figure that's, like, just something about her that I don't know. Maybe Anne Margaret had, like, a famous chest, or that particular outfit she's wearing. She's wearing this yellow bikini. Like, oh, maybe that yellow bikini is something she famously wore in some movie, so that's why they're paying more attention to it here. That was the only spot of, like, why are we focusing on these boobs so much?
I did notice that one. Yeah, that one definitely stuck out in my mind. But it was this. I mean, I don't really know the play. I haven't seen the movie, so it's like, well, maybe like she's supposed to represent the sex symbol. She's supposed to be the hot, attractive one, which in a high school play, like that's like stereotypically, like at least to me, that's what I think of. If there's a high school play and there's a central like couple in that role, you all like it's just gonna be a popularity contest. It's gonna be the hot girl and the hot guy who are probably already into each other, like outside of the play. So it's just an excuse, as Harvey puts it, to kiss her in front of the whole school. So it's like, okay, this is the sex symbol, and the sex symbol is giving Sabrina her okay to be like, yes, you can be a sex symbol too.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. I just thought I like the way that there were different bodies in this book, and most, like 98% of the time, they're very everyday, and those 2%, it means something. There's something happening because these boobs are different. I don't know.
There you go, folks.
Yeah.
You can dissect the way the boobs are drawn and analyze them and find out about artwork and why they. That's art school. That's all I did it at art school. But so if you had to recommend other stuff, if people liked this, what do you think they should go read or watch next? Obviously, Afterlife with Archie. I think you should definitely go check that out. But does something come to mind for you?
It did, actually. Parts of this kind of reminded me of this young adult book series that was published, I think, after Harry Potter, and I think the general public thought, oh, it's just another kids doing magic Harry Potter type book. But they're actually really fantastic. They're really something special. It's called the Bartimaeus Trilogy. The first book is called The Amulet of Samarkand. I've got it up there
back
on
her bookshelf behind her.
Yeah, and it is it's a young adult book. I think the main character is like 12 in this series, so it's not like the same level of teen drama that the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is, and it doesn't get quite as much into horror either. But the books are narrated by this demon named Bartimaeus, and the way they are written is that he's got this kind of snarky tone throughout the whole thing, but when he wants to stop and be like, oh, and let me tell you about this one crazy magic thing that happened this one time, it puts a footnote in there. Like, and footnotes are something you normally just see in like academic writing, like for more about these studies, you can see historical this professor's text, paper. Yeah. And these are just like side story, that's like cool. Extra detail footnotes. And the way that sometimes the narration was written, especially towards the end of the book, is it got more detailed, and there were narration boxes like all over the page, and like the major ones would be at top, and there'd be, like the little "Are you praying for Harvey yet?" little box there at the bottom of the page. That reminded me of the way this book uses its narration, and it uses the footnotes throughout the book to sort of give you that extra. A lot of time it's like an extra joke or like just a neat piece of world building, or sometimes it's this very sort of poignant little personal factoid about this character. Like the demon narrator is the main character of the books, or he's a demon summoned by the main character who is a wizard. It's not that similar to this thing, but just if you like youth, magic, and like deep, well-crafted narration about that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, try the Bartimaeus books.
There you go. If you want something scarier, I would read Witches by Scott Snyder. It's spelled Wytches. I believe. That book is scary. That book is horrifying.
Ooh.
So that is also something else that is about witches. I would also suggest this is more, it's scary at times, more about what we got in this book. I would read Rachel Rising by Terry Moore. You and I did an episode on, oh God, why am I blanking on the name?
Strangers in Paradise?
Yes. Same writer and author, same writer, artist. And Rachel Rising is about this girl who died and then came back to life. But she's not a zombie. But she comes back to life and she's trying to figure out what's happening and all of this stuff. And she is in a small town. It's very witchy. There's witches. You meet Lilith. There is a whole bunch of stuff about the Salem witch trials and stuff like that, and it's really good. It's a fantastic book. So I highly recommend that one as well. Yeah, I think that's all that I got.
Yeah, and now we can move on to the pitches for next week, which, spoiler alert, all involve that symbiote man with the big teeth.
Yes, let me pull this stuff up here. So pitch number 1. I'm going with Spider-Man: Birth of Venom. This
Sounds
is
like a good place to start.
Yes, this is a collection of a number of different comic books and stuff like that. That is all of the how did Venom get started? How, because Spider-Man had the black suit first, if I'm not mistaken, and he got it coming out of Secret Wars, which was an event book that Marvel did. That was basically a giant toy commercial in comic book form.
I'm familiar with Secret Wars.
And yeah, he gets the black suit, and that comes back to Earth, and then stuff happens, and he realizes the suit is alive, and it's an alien. And then somewhere along the line, Venom comes along, and I haven't ever read that stuff. So this is like the origin story of Venom. If I'm not mistaken, that's on Comixology Unlimited. And it's a little bit longer of a read because it collects, I want to say, like 15-ish comics. So it's a good chunk of writing. Pitch number 2. Venom: Lethal Protector. This is Venom's first solo comic. After debuting in a bunch of the Spider-Man titles and stuff, Venom obviously became a very popular character, so they gave him his own comic. And the first one was a 6-issue mini-series called Venom: Lethal Protector. I think with that one, instead of being in New York, he moves out to the West Coast and decides to he picks a city and is like, I'm gonna be the superhero in this city, except he is also this monster thing, so he's killing people and stuff like that. So as the title suggests, he is a lethal protector. Side note on that is not to be confused with a more recent book of Venom called Lethal Protector. There's a volume 3, which its subtitle is Lethal Protector. That's more recent, I think 2000s-ish sometime. The Lethal Protector I'm talking about is it collects the 6-issue run from 1993, I think is when it originally came out. So it's some early 90s comics. And then something very recent, Venom Volume 1 from 2018 by Donny Cates. I actually don't really know what this one is about. I wanted to put this one on there because this is the most recent thing. I think with the movie coming out, A lot of people are gonna jump into comics. There's different people. There's the ones who are like, what's the most recent stuff?
Yeah.
They'll jump into this. And then there's some like me who's like, what's the very beginning? So I know the name Donny Cates because he is blowing up right now in the comic book world. He's writing a whole bunch of stuff. Supposedly this stuff on Venom has been fantastic. I have not checked it out yet. But from everything I see, hear, and read, he is killing it in the comic book world. So Venom Volume 1, which is the first 6 issues of the new Venom series.
Cool. Do you know if those... you said the first pick was on Comixology. Do you know if the second and third picks are?
I think you can buy them on Comixology. I don't know if they're on Comixology Unlimited.
Huh. I just ask because it's good weather out here, Kyle. I'm finally putting my balcony to good use. Like, I sat out yesterday and I read Sabrina on my tablet. And I'm like, This is great. And it's easier for me to take, like, my tablet outside than to take my laptop outside.
For sure.
I think I'm still the most interested in Venom Lethal Protector, seeing as how this movie we're going to watch out in the theaters with Mr. Thomas Hardy is the first solo Venom. Let's go to his first solo comic.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, this is also one of the books that the movie is kind of pulling inspiration from.
Nice.
Especially with it not interacting with Spider-Man. It's one of those, like, he's an anti-hero, he's a villain, but he kills he's not a villain per se, but he kills people if he wants to, and he hates Spider-Man, so who knows? We'll see. Venom Lethal Protector.
All right, sounds cool.
6-issue miniseries from 1993.
Oh, neat. It'll be a whole complete thing.
Yeah. That sounds good. This episode that we just recorded will be coming out the same weekend as the Venom movie. So the following weekend is when our episode on Venom will be coming out, which hopefully will prolong the news cycle. Hey, you just watched the new Venom movie. Go read the comics.
Yeah.
Yay. That's it. That's it. That's what we'll do for next week.
Yes, we've successfully spoken about the comic for this week. We've chosen the comic for next week. Of course, we don't always do back-to-back comics. We do all kinds of things. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is just a little 2-run comic spree.
Exactly.
So if anybody was here with us on the live stream, I want to say thanks for listening in. We always like it when you are a part of the conversation, and we do our live streams every Sunday at 12 Eastern, 11 for me
Eastern.
in the Midwest. Yes.
So if you guys read or watch along at home, you guys can join in the live stream and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
Be a part of the conversation.
Come join on in. And as Kyle mentioned before, you can follow us on Twitter. We really would like the help on YouTube, on Twitch. Leave us a great review wherever you leave reviews for podcast. Apple's the most popular one. Tell us if there are others. Where else can we find reviews about ourselves, maybe, if people have written them there?
Yes.
And consider our Patreon as well for just as little as $1 a month. $1 is like probably one whole real good diner meal back in 1966. Like, if Harvey had a couple bucks in his pocket, he could take Sabrina on a really great date. For less than a really great 1960s teen date, you can support us and get early episode access. So if you don't want to wait to hear us talk about Venom, you want the Venom discussion as soon as possible, throw us $1 and It can be yours.
Exactly.
You can find me personally on Twitter at WilkyWit. That's WILKYWIT. And Kyle, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Hush315. And I am the one running the Whatnauts Twitter account, which is just at the Whatnauts. And I believe that is all.
Yes. mission is complete.
There we go.
We've had a great discussion this week, and we look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Thanks,
Good.
guys.
Adios,
Bye.
guys. Bye.